Hey, welcome to week 18, and we're getting into the 7th house in your birth chart. I'm going to backtrack a little bit, of course, just to finish up some thoughts about some research that I did on the constellation and the sign, because there's been, even today, there was a bit more of the rabbit hole to get down. But then I'm going to get into, well, maybe we'll start with the birth chart and we'll finish up with the other stuff, because I've got the cards here on the thing. And in terms of us being, now that Sun's in Cancer and we're heading through Cancer's constellation with the Sun, anchoring. What I'm going to do right now, oh, I know what I forgot. Well, I'll get it in a while. But you know that thing I'm going to do that I mentioned in the last time, because I wanted to make use, I wanted to work predictively now that I've found in the past 3 houses that it's true that once we hit that middle section, that overlap between the constellation and the sign, like the seasonal sign, the tropical with the sidereal, and then there's this overlap of a 5 to 6 days where it's like, I watched, I kept an eye out for it in my journaling to see if that house that we're in when we hit that overlap, if that energy pervades and overrides with the things that happen in your life at that time. And it was true. So I thought, well, what can I do to harness that, right? So I'm going to get in touch. I wanted to write a thank you letter to an author that has meant a lot to me in my largest writing project, the sex comedy novel, which will actually be a series so far as I know, Robert and Jennifer Ride the Bus. So Molly Parkin is a Welsh author, but she's not just an author, she's a fashionista, she's a painter, she's all kinds of things. She's had such a huge life. Absolutely massively important social person, but phenomenal person. So I know that I wanted to connect with her while she's still around, and so I did. I looked her up. I looked up her daughter Sophie is on Instagram. It's been a few years since Molly herself was on Instagram, but her granddaughter's on Instagram as well, and her daughter has a private club down it's amazing where the club is located in London. I come from the arts community. I was born into it, but I love mingling with all kinds of people. So it's not like that. I'm not trying to, I do have to transform. We're in the house 7. 7 is transformation, and I know that I've got to step up and become I have to step back into being big again. I was born to a very big personality. My mother was an opera singer, classical singer, and I grew up around people with very big personalities, professional musicians. And so I have to reacclimatize to that, and step into whatever this transformation is, and through owning what I need to do that's outrageous, that scares the shit out of me, right? And so so I found them. I know what I want to do to produce, to connect with them, but I realize this looks like dead visuals because I'm not doing anything. So what I've done, we'll get to the birth chart stuff, but the word that came to me even while I was finishing this that I'll modify and add to the book is anchoring. What I'm going to do is not only try to connect with, because it's connecting with roots. My grandmother was born in Shoreditch, London. There are things about that project. It's psychic co-writing with Paul Gallico and D.H. Lawrence, a whole bunch of people. And that has woven itself into my life so that I've created the website, Words Between Worlds, the blog, where I'll prove and I'll do all the dot connecting, right, for the psychic co-writing to prove the points. But in terms of wanting to do a 4th house thing while we're in 4th house peak season, right, before we hit Lionsgate peak season, but connect with roots. And so the fact that her daughter's club is even right where, geographically, where my story basically is located. So, and that's no accident, just like everything else that happens with that book, which also connects all the murders. It's a comedy that's dealing with the injustices. And so anyway, again, so many roads converge that I can't do it justice right now without totally screwing up your mind. So but that's what I'll do. Is by the time we're done the final week of house 7, of who's working with you in this house, who your guides are in this house particularly. I know what I want to do to present my stuff to her, and I will at least be in touch with her daughter by then, but I want to have my communication ready to go before I contact, because I don't want to actually keep them waiting if they're agreeable to me sending something. I'm going to ask, you know, what would be the most appropriate way, because Molly's 89, she's just recovering from something, and I know her daughter's busy, and granddaughter seems really, really neat. And artistic, right? But not that that's everybody matters and not everything that they're doing. So I'll get that together. I'll stick to my word about getting things done, because I'm putting myself on record to do it. And this is about transforming. This is about stepping into. So whatever you're working on right now and you need to step into, this energy is pushing. It's relentless. It's not gonna ease up, because it's hard to be born, right? It just, birth is so difficult. And we've got Empress energy here because Venus ruling 7th and 2nd. So I've gone through the tarot. We'll get into how the tarot correlates to the chart, because I think it illustrates it very well. I'm just going to set these up for a second. I wanted them as the visual. So that covers that. And again, I know I recapped on this last video, but the 7 of transformation that we are in, because we're doing in the 3, the air story is all about manifesting. So first in this house, we'll do a transformation, and then we hit the 3rd house of manifesting, right? And then we hit the 11th house, which converts to a 2, which is the planning and the partnering, right? So it's, you know, I'm finding Libra I've been on time for things with Libra. There's been balance with Libra, even a bit more rootedness following the rootedness of the 4th house. So I really want to capitalize. I want to ride the wave with this, so that I'm set with what I want to do before I hit the major creative energy of Leo, because that's coming in hard and fast, and especially since we've got Mars and Venus in Leo now. But we have that full moon in Aquarius coming up, and I'm nervous about it. But we've got to figure out what we need to release for that. I've got to go back. I've got to do the meditation for the cards, for the predictions that we did. Right now, I've had a heavy warning. Justice issues are still big time in my life. They always will be. But I've got a lot of trouble coming my way. I've got to stay very safe and very controlled right now about what I do connected to the murders, because some of the asshats have started to target me and Tracy because of what we've been saying and doing. Probably, if anything, I'm bringing Tracy trouble at this point. And so they've started up a couple of campaigns online on YouTube, and it's been brought to my attention by guides, but I've been getting readings. Minnow Pond did a couple of readings, that one in particular that warned and actually used the name of one of my, Coyote is one of my main problems. It's a nickname for somebody that I've been dealing with connected to all of this since 2015. And so actually named a Coyote. The Coyote card came out. But also Victoria gave some warnings. I even hesitate to give them credit because it might bring them grief. But right now, so I've been advised just to, you know, stay back, stay quiet, apart from doing this video, because I need to explain it in the video. And so, yeah, I need to stay focused on what I'm building and what I'm creating. Tracy's having her birthday, so she's off having a fine time right now. And but yeah, no, I was in tears last week. I found out ahead of her, so far as I know, what was coming down the pipe. And so she's let me know that she knows, because she was busy with the high court stuff and other things, and then birthday things. So she missed my warnings, and I told her not to worry about them and then she came back at me with information. I was like, yeah, that's what my warnings were about. So so that carries, of course, Libra energy to it, because I know things have to play out a certain way. There's the guy that I gave some trouble to, kind of cost him his situation out in Thailand, and he was running around Malaysia for a while. Now he's back in the UK, and he's saying my name. And yeah, Tracy's pals thought they had him in jail. He doesn't seem to be in jail, but I'm not entirely trusting some of those friends either. They have the wrong other friends. So, and it's all tied to Freemasons. They all know, they've known me for years, so there's not much point in me hiding too much. But in terms of being smart about what I do with them, you know, how much I engage with them. So I finished up my notes here. This idea of 7 and heaven, we got to dig into that. And I got the name, I'm so embarrassed that I didn't already know, but Asherah, if we're going back to the Canaanite and the Phoenician goddess, who's actually originates over there as the wife of Yahweh, and then the tree of life and everything would all be connected to her. But then that takes us back to Kemet, to Egypt, because that's where the tree of life comes from. And so then we have to know that a lot of the Egyptian stuff is probably derived from West African stuff. So I still have to dig. It's going to be very deep, and I've got to actually order the books. This spot is going to be dedicated to Natural Tahuti, who actually is in prison. I put the link in the last video. He's actually in prison. What they did for him speaking the truth about not only the real meaning of the symbolisms of the 7, that's the square, and the compass being the legs of the Great Mother, and the G being the G spot, so all of that, but actually doing the work of speaking for Mama Zogbe's work. And if we go back to the true history of the African prophetesses, so what they did was they fixed him up on false drug charges, put him in prison, and the first day in jail, his inmate dies of a drug overdose, and so they slap murder charge on him as well. He put his appeal in 2018, and I've been reading through. I went back into his, I of course I cross-referenced, and I started looking into, I've got other citations on Asherah, because it's not hard to look that up. But in terms of finding the actual root of it all, a lot of the artifacts are going to be, there's the one video in particular shows just how much artifacts have been whitewashed, and how much Southern Europe at least can start to look very African. A lot of black people in Southern Europe going way back, right? So Canaanites could have been black, Phoenicians, right? All of this stuff, all of these things that we tend to think of in not so black terms, right? It turns out, you know. So, but again, thorough sourcing of materials. So going into that again, and then I see a yoke, I see a keyhole. The idea of Libra actually being attached to concept of heaven, the meaning of the place, possibly. Is Libra as a constellation, as a sign, is it completely representative of heaven and the path to heaven? Like technically, literally, is heaven in that direction? So that's where I'm at. But again, the Great Mother, the fact that even nothing, the Bible as we know it, and I know this from multiple studies, areas of study, that sources, that the versions of it that we have do not predate 7th century BCE, probably more towards the 5th century BCE. Josiah's time, where, you know, he creates a bunch of prophecies about himself and pretends like they're ancient, right? And everything else, what I know from the Bible came from Arabia by Kamal Salibi, the Lebanese scholar. Reworking the translations is that everything pre-exile would actually be located down in the Asir region of Arabia, not actually up in Palestine, Israel. So, and Egypt was mistranslated. And it was actually another more northern region of Asir, or beyond Asir, in Arabia, that they were actually talking about. So we've got very tribal stories going on. Eden's still there, little wadi, a little oasis, you know, but it is not actually referencing Egypt. So that is only confirmed by everybody in Africa and their experiences of taking apart this approach to history, right? So we're getting there. I feel very strongly that we're almost basically, I mean, of course, there's everything Asia has to say about everything, and Australian. So I found links to digging into the Maori experience and the roots of Maori knowledge. So we're getting there. It is possible to get somewhere. It is. It's amazing. Now, I noticed that I completely forgot my margins. Just on a technical note, this should be over that way, and I'm very upset. Same with this. I just got excited, and I needed to shift everything over, so that is what it is. That is what it is. I screwed up. Now, for this week, I'm mostly there. 7 in your birth chart. I'm breaking it down. And so what I like to do in terms of, as well as, is there anything special I can say? We've already done this for 3 other houses. Now I'm starting to incorporate a bit more of the constellation information as I know it. If there are significant stars or clusters that are connected, then I make a note of that because it's interesting to me because of the energies that I'm figuring out. And of course I'm bringing in the aspects more and more because they're starting to carry emotional weight, which means I can work with them intellectually, yes, because they're significant enough, or they're clear enough in my mind, and I can connect them to these other things. But by and large, since this is going to be specific to your own chart anyway, here's how I can illustrate as usual. I found out something very interesting about 7th house. I know it plays largely in my chart, but I guess I'll start with what's most fascinating is because of one particular placement. If we look at look at any placements in the tropical season, right? Any planets placed in the tropical season, right? Any planets literally placed in the sidereal, right? Like where they actually were, not just hitting or as an aura, but actual placements in the sidereal season, and then in the 7th houses, so the whole house and I'm finding more and more I am not going to remove one house system. I'm going to keep both always. I do believe it's that complex. And so any placements in both house systems. So taking all into account, this card of all the cards has the most. I don't have another card that has as many planetary placements, is what I'm trying to say. The 6 of Swords is unique to me. Venus hits my 6 of Swords in the varying, right? The different ways, either by house or by season. Okay? Venus, my Lilith, my Pluto, my Uranus, my Jupiter hits basically the 5-6 split of Swords. So I don't have anything else that has this many. So I am the 6 of Swords. I've got my deep creative powers, my hidden powers are in the 6 of Swords. I bring the Tower in the 6 of Swords. So I've got Scorpio energy, like Pluto, Scorpio. I've got Uranus. I mean, you could put that as Mars, Pluto energy, but for me it's Uranus, right? I've got my magnetisms and polarities. So, but my non-conformity is in the 6 of Swords. My energy is in the 5 and 6 of Swords, so there's necessary change. But again, my Venus in my 7th house in Taurus, right? My 7th house hits Taurus and Gemini. All right, but it hits Taurus first. So Venus is in Venus. It literally is in the constellation of Taurus. My Venus in Taurus is between the 2 and 3 of Pentacles. Okay, so all of these planets hit this, therefore, and it has played out in my life, I do help people get to safe places. I do help people transition from where they need to go to where they need to get. And it's a recurring theme in my life, but I would say this is, for me, when it's laid out like this, then I'm left with the certainty that if no other card has this much connection to it, then clearly this one probably leads the way. Everything, there will be other strong aspects, yes, but really got Black Moon with such a similar energy to Venus. It's so complementary, even though it's lunar, right? But the whole idea of that deep feminine and knowing how to work with magnetisms and polarities, right? And then the prenuptial Venus of, here's what I need, here's what's good for me, and knowing, like, not just what you think is good for you, but finding out the hard way what is actually good for you. So this is amazing to me to get that. So check for that. And what I did was, when I found out how significant, you know, like, not like I haven't got into this before, but I did a shorthand of all the other planets, right? And so basically it would actually be quicker to show you where I don't have planet placements. Yeah, or like in the I do not have anything placed in any of these aces. So the Ace of Swords, yes, but I don't have anything affecting these aces. So what does that mean? I don't have anything in Libra in the Seven of Swords, and I don't have anything with the 8 and 9. So that entrepreneurial energy, the career energy, I do not have anything there. And I find that very interesting. Everything else connects to something. Where I do have the 10, and this is going to be like, so, like, these are all the cards, obviously. The rest, you know, I didn't include personality cards or planet cards, okay? Just the, you know, the 2, 3, 4s and the aces, 8, 9, 10s, etc., etc. But where I have for the 10, I do have my Uranus. I have my Uranus there. So my career is extremely specific to, and I would say, yes, everything's shifted for me because of my Uranus cycles. Totally. I mean, last year, year 42 and year 21 were absolutely, I gave birth to my son. I left university and gave birth to my son when I was 21. And then, boom, I went from not having any idea about being in tarot and astrology to being reduced into such need to cope with what I did to a shaman, David Schurter, by confronting his, you know, bad guys who are the white supremacist Freemasons. Yeah, and that's how I was brought into becoming my full self. I needed guidance, and I knew that the only way to get guidance was from people that spoke the same languages, dealt with what I was dealing with. And I had already left the church in 2006, and I knew damn well I was already a scholar on all of that. And I was like, well, I'm gonna have to. And they literally, certain reading titles had my back when, you know, no friends were brave enough to have my back. And that's where we are, and that's how it was meant to be. Because Kali came and visited me in 2009, got the ball rolling. I mean, it's all been her all along. So again, though, to have just the one career card in here and to have it completely lined up with Uranus, you know, that's what you look for. You look for how tarot connects. Yeah, so you look for how tarot connects. Sorry, the camera cut out. For how tarot connects and can tell you things about. I had to go reset up because I cleared everything up and had moved on. But yeah, how it can explain things to you in a way that even just the chart can't. Does, you know, it wants to show you, and it can, but this is perhaps sometimes the faster way, and it's fun. I mean, it's just. It is fun to sit down with the cards and see it this way. And it enhances, it's not like you need to retain everything whenever you're watching a reading, right? It's called, your mind can take a concept in, plug it in, add it to the files, and then you release it and you move on because you're emotionally connected to the information. And you just don't try to like become a head case about it. You release. You let the body, you trust the computer, and you trust yourself as the computer to process, right? And it'll come together. And so figure out what it means about these 6 cards, the fact that there are 6 cards, right? You know, see what that comes to. Oh, and I'll point out, maybe that's why, you know, well, there's not actually any reason why we should worry about cutting out. Camera cuts out, it does what it does. But the planets that aren't affected, well, that's not all the planets, and that's the other deck. What the heck happened here? Well, okay, I don't know. I got clever on myself. There are planets that are not affected. Neptune and Saturn. There were more than that. I don't know where the sun went. Somewhere. Great. Where? I don't know. This is what happens when I leave. Yeah, right there. Okay. So, those are all affected. But yeah, I don't have, so my Page of Wands, so my Aries energy, not to mention my Mars energy, Leo energy, Knight of Wands for me, and the Sun, not affected by, particularly by Libra. Mercury, although I do have Gemini in my 7th house, but in terms of an actual planet placement, no. And that will tie in with the fact that my Knight of Wands, Virgo, for me, connected to Mercury, of course, ruled by Mercury. He's here unaffected by Libra and Scorpio, Knight of Cups for me. So, yeah, those guys, where did I put Neptune and Saturn? They are also probably at, yeah, here we go. We'll just get there eventually. So these cards and these planets, these personality types of my chart, and I would put this page is like a childhood energy, right? And like a young adult energy for the night. Now, of course, we can be in any of this energy anytime in our lives. That's the whole thing. But in terms of if we layer meanings and layer interpretations, you can look at your chart in terms of what you were going through as a child and what you were, you know, who you came in as, how it layers up, right? And then what you were going through in your adolescence, in your early, not adolescence, let's say early adulthood, right? And then, of course, and then relayer it as the energy that you're currently in, able to float amongst those. So if we go into, let's start with 7th house, because we've already dealt with the planet placements for me and how they connect to that 6 of Swords. But in my 7th house, so what you want to do is you want to look at whether or not you're in Page energy. And again, I've graduated by houses. So Page energy would be 1, 2, 3, 4 houses. Knight energy would be 5, 6, 7, 8 houses numbers 5, 6, 7, 8. And then King and Queen energy for me is houses 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And that's exactly where my houses hit. And my houses are small. Now, if we just go whole house, then in Libra, I'm in my, now this printout went blurry, I'm in my 11th and 12th houses. So I would actually be in here. And here. This would be my predominant energy. Okay? And but this King and Queen and King wear all the crowns as well, right? Now, as it works out, now why did 10th hits first in Leo for me in the whole house system? No, well, of course 9 would hit first. What am I saying? 9 always has to come before 10. All right. So this is how we hit. But when we hit Libra, specifically as a season, I'm overlapping 9 and 11. And why did I have 11 first? I don't know, because I was wrong. So these two energies combine for me between whole house, and I'm not saying you have to be this dedicated to everything. And then obviously 10 and 12 combine to follow, right? But you can leave them in order. You can leave them in order. So, but in terms of what energies will hit first in the calendar year for me, these will hit first. They won't necessarily hit numerically in order, right? Because 9, 11, 10, 12. Now I have Uranus. I don't have anything, well, in my 9th. Let's see. In my 9th, I have the Pluto. My North Node comes right before it, but that's in Virgo. Okay. And in my 11th, it's not until we hit whole house. Is that right? And it's in my whole house. Okay. So let's say Pluto's affecting that. And then Uranus. Uranus is affecting this. Directly in my 10th. But as it overlaps with the 12th, then yes. Because Jupiter's back over in my 7th house. And so's Lilith, and my, like, Jupiter and Lilith are nearby each other, and Venus is over there. So, and again, with, if we just remind, with the Six of Swords, right? Emphasis on the Six of Swords, because that's where these are placed. So all of this career energy in my 7th, well, not in my 7th, in the collective 7th, in the season of, is when I'm in my career energy. So what does that mean, right? But it does mean that's where I'm in my mastermind mode. And so we look to see what happens at that time of year when I actually, now is it always just a year thing? Is it a calendar thing? Or anytime a justice situation comes up, then I am in this energy. There is that. But it'll be interesting to see what the year brings for that as well. It does bring the birth of my son. It brings, let me see how I want to keep this. I like to keep that out. It does bring several things. It brings the birth of his father, who sued me 4 times. So certainly, what else did, well, I've got it on the other sheets of what it does. But then when we get into 7th house placements, right? Now for me, that is the Knight of Swords. Others would put Libra as the Page of Swords. But I put Gemini as the Page of Swords, right? So we go back to cardinal and fixed. And so I put Libra definitely as fixed energy. And especially since it's 7th house, but because of all the concerns that happen in it. Now, my placements are as such. These are where I am in. So because it's where my 7th house is in my chart, then I consider it to be where I am naturally Knight of Swords energy. And if we, what I take from that is because it's going through these page houses, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer for me. Okay, because I do the same thing with earth energies as I did with air. And I made Taurus cardinal. And I've got Hierophant then, and the Lovers, and the Chariot, right? Represented here as houses that it's going through. So I'm going to be Knight of Swords energy. So fastest moving knight, possibly saying the wrong things, possibly doing the wrong things, defensive, protective, you know, on the go, right? Through this young energy. So safe to say when I was a child, I was in this mode. And that didn't work out too well. It was a very frustrated childhood. And so then the problem is it's not child energy, right? Going through child stages. It is young adult energy. So it means that if I'm a young adult, then I'm possibly being a little too young, right? I'm a little too naive when I'm in this energy. I needed to learn a lot at this age. And that would make sense because I became a single mother at age 21, right? Like, this is definitely, hello. And we've got that Six of Swords placement, right? And now I do have cards picked out for each of the placements that are in here. So, like, because I have them all lined up, I'll just sort out 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles. I have placements for those. I do have placements for the Ace and the 2. I have placements, planet placements for all of those cards. And I do have placements for the 2, 3, and 4 of Cups. But what's very interesting is that by the time I'm done my 7th house, so yeah, so in case wherever I cut off, but yeah, so because my 7th house between the, and that would be the sidereal placement, ends right on this, on the Ace of Cups. So to me, it seems like everything is working towards that Ace of Cups in my 7th house. So everything that this Knight of Swords needs to go through is for the sake of that full cup, that spiritual connection, that full spiritual being. And then, yeah, so this is not because I'm obsessed with me, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what to do for yourself. And for me, it ends up being fairly intuitive. I know it lays out quite analytically, or, you know, maybe not intuitive. Well, intuition is not even a word. But fun. Let's just say for fun. And working with concepts, like, because the pictures can illustrate a concept without words. Yes, even though words are involved, but the mind can translate. Yes, and so that's my 7th house experience. So the balance of figuring out then being in the King's and Queen's energy versus having to grow, yeah, and do all that development. And it looks like, it felt like the hard way, and it looks like the hard way. So everything's correlating, though, between experience and how it's playing out in cards. And I just feel more and more correct and more affirmed about how I reclassified air as being cardinal Gemini, fixed Libra, and mutable Aquarius, and cardinal Taurus, fixed Virgo, and mutable Capricorn for Earth. Absolutely. Anything else? When I get down to, you know, I'll conclude this next week, but what's the answer to house number 7? And no typo this time, yay. It's going to come down heavily, I believe, to that 6 of Swords placement. It's going to come down by the time I'm done sorting through all of it. And I do have quintile. I do have a quincunx. So again, we go back to that, those awkward angles, those awkward aspects that beg a certain level of genius and a certain level of sense of humor. I have my Venus nearly, not directly, indirectly opposing my Neptune. So you look into that. I have a trine with my North Node and sextile with Mars. So again, we review what that means. But I just put a shorthand in. And I put a shorthand in of Empress, right, for Venus. Wheel of Fortune, because I have Jupiter in my 7th house. So the Wheel of Fortune, and the High Priestess I use is Lilith, right, because I have Lilith in my 7th. And it turns out, in one system I have it, in the whole system I have it in my 7th, and in my Ibn Ezra Regiomontanus system I have Lilith in my 8th house. And those are seemingly extremely difficult places to have Lilith, but very interesting places to have Lilith. So I'm really on a bit of a Lilith journey right now. and finding that very interesting. And helpful, actually, because the more you learn, and you can integrate and heal and, you know, resolve, and probably all just in the nick of time. And again, I've got such a strong correlation between 7 and 2 because I have Empress, because I have Venus in my 2nd house. And then again, because Venus and Lilith are so similar, so connected, to have Lilith in my 7th as well, it basically just don't pick a fight with me. And that's why I'm being quiet this week. That's why the warnings, especially because being Scorpio. Especially being Scorpio. But yeah, sex and me and sex comedies and being brave about doing the sex comedy, this is all tied to this stuff. And bringing the justice into it, because the whole point of the sex comedy is to make it possible to discuss all the injustice in a completely coming from left field way. Like, it's gonna really not make the assholes happy. I don't know where the audience for it will be. I know, of course, there's an audience for sex comedy all the time, but it's a very huge market and saturated. And so the thing is well, you start with, you get rooted. So that's why I want to contact. It's not that I want anything from Molly Parkin. I don't care if anybody else really reads it. I care if she reads it, you know? I mean, I do care, but if it fails, if I don't do with it, if I don't succeed in doing with it what needs to be done, if at least I got it in front of her eyes because of all she did for me, then at least I got it in front of her eyes. Even if she hates it, you know? But in terms of attempting to be relevant to the people that did something similar, that were brave with these topics themselves. And so same thing is for you. I think there's a tremendous amount of bravery required, of course, by Libra, by all the houses. But this is really, you know, like, the same as Cancer is a zero tolerance policy for any toxic behavior. Of course 7 has. If 7 is the gateway to heaven, so yeah. So that's basically, I'm fairly resolved. I've got a fair bit of clarity, I think, with what 7 means. And if we go, you know, if I go back to those aces that are missing, but I do have the Ace of Swords absolutely in my 7th house. So the emphasis is on the Ace of Swords. So the 6 of Swords and the Ace of Swords. I'll make a note of it right now. So for next week, photo diary, and again, like, I went back where that's not where I went. Back to the page where I'd made note of all the aspects, because I do have, yeah, I've got, so I'm going to look at the squares and what they can teach me about myself, where those clashes are that are helpful. I've got a square between Jupiter and my nodes. What else? I've got a square between Lilith and Mercury and Pluto. Square between Lilith and Pluto as well. But I do have a quincunx. I've got 2 quincunxes in here. So there should be a fair bit of comedy going on in here. I've got 2 quintiles. And I have a lucky trine with Uranus between Lilith and Uranus. And I have a lucky trine between Venus and my North Node. I need to learn and grow in a sextile between my Mars, because that's what sextiles are, between Mars and Venus. Yes, no shit. So yeah. But again, you can't learn it all right away. But I've made notes so that in the future, you know, come back this time next year, I'll be back here figuring out more of this, right? I'll be doing this every year. Okay, so that's it for week 18. So next week, yeah, your guides, who's working with you in it, in this house, and I'll do the photo diary, and whatever it is we need to be doing to be brave, whatever this transformation is. awesome stuff. And then we're into the third house, number 3. So much love and many thanks. Good luck.